So welcome to this tutorial. What we're going to be creating is a walking character for a point and click adventure game. We're going to be taking some sprites that we've created in Aesprite, and we're going to be showing you how to slice them out into Unity using the 2D sprite tools so that all of these pieces of pixel art animation end up giving you a proper walking character in 4 directions. So let's get started. So we're going to get started first of all in Aesprite. Those with a keen eye will notice I'm not on the webcam this evening and that my voice is somewhat different, and that is because I'm full of cold, but I am cracking on and trying to get as much done as I can on the game at the moment. So we're going to start off by looking at some of the pixel art that we've created. I recommend, if you're creating a character for the first time for a point and click, go with 4 directions to begin with, otherwise you give yourself a huge amount of extra work. So we've got what we'd call down, up, right and left, so you need those as a minimum really for this to work. I started drawing this character I think on one of the live streams, so once I'd drawn each of these first frames of those directions, they're the kind of resting sprites that we're going to be using. I then went ahead and for each of those then created a animation, just a 6-frame walk cycle, something nice and simple that matches the retro styling. So there's one there for down, there's one there for left, there's one there for right, and they're exactly the same apart from they're flipped and his little badge there has been added, so I didn't have to do that one twice. And then there's one for up. So each of them is only 6 frames long. They're all very small. I think in total, 32 at the bottom left there, it says 32 by 64 pixels. So really small sprites. They're kind of around about that size in reality. If you've followed some of the other tutorials, we're then scaling them up in Unity with pixel perfect scaling, so it doesn't resample them at all. So you still get that retro pixel style. So what we need to do is get these sprites out of Aesprite first. So once you've got all of these and you've taken the time to draw them, and that's no mean feat, you want to get this one out first that's got all of the directions in, because this will be useful for setting up the basic one. You want to go export Spritesheet, and you get a set of options here. There's about how they're laid out, the sprites themselves, whether you want borders and where they're output to. You don't really need to change many of these. I would leave it as by rows. If you've got this set up correctly and you've kept them all in exactly the same size rectangles, then this will be perfect. If you go to output and output file, you can then click on here, choose where you want to save it. I've already saved a lot of these, so I'm going to be recreating some of this. So let me put these in my sprites. I'll just call this tutorial. We'll do it again from scratch so you can see it. Tutorial. And we're going to put them in there. And this is just Clive still all, as in all directions. So we'll hit save. It's going to save it as a PNG. And we go export. So that's that one done. So with these ones that are animated, do the same thing. File, export. You can, some of these have got green backgrounds on it. Just hide the things you don't want to see. And when you do export Spritesheet, it'll only export the things that are visible. I think there's an option there, layers, visible layers, frames, all frames. So that's all fine. We don't want to apply any padding or anything like that. We're just going to output that to a file. And the place I'm putting them for this tutorial is my sprites tutorial. So Clive walk down, save that, export. Let's do the left. So file, export Spritesheet. Same thing. My sprites tutorial, that's Clive walk left. I recommend giving them these names: the character name, what they're doing, walking, and the direction, and use down, up, left and right, because that's handy when you come to Adventure Creator. And then just 2 left to do. Going through the whole process here, no edits. I appreciate these things take time, but it's worth you seeing all of this. So my sprites tutorial, Clive walk right, export, and then the last one is the up direction. Whoops, clicked the wrong thing. Export sprite sheet. Clive walk up. Okay, so we've got all of them exported now. So we can come into Unity. This is what we're going to end up with, where all of those sprite sheets are being used kind of like flip books in all the different directions. So when you click over here, he will walk and then turn up or down or right or left, whichever direction you click on. We're going to set all of that up and show you how to do that. So the next step here is to make sure you've got a character set up in Unity through the Adventure Creator plugin. So this game that I'm making is heavily dependent on Adventure Creator. Hugely recommend it. It's a plugin that's often on sale on the Unity Asset Store, but it saves you so much work in creating an adventure game. I can highly recommend it. You'll see where I've been putting those Aesprite sprites. They're in this My Sprites tutorial folder there. You can see them all there. The one with all of the directions on, just the static one. And then each of the animated ones you can see has been laid out like a sprite sheet. Get my teeth in. So what you'll notice if you select any one of these in the inspector, you'll see the import settings for it. If, say, just with this first one, if I click Open Sprite Editor, you'll notice that they're really blurry. And I mentioned this in one of the other tutorials that I've done. It's because by default, Unity applies some like filtering when it scales things up. So we want to turn all of that off to make sure that we've got no filtering at all and no compression, because they're so small. They're like 8 kilobytes there, that whole sprite sheet, and these animated ones are like 12 kilobytes. They're absolutely tiny, so there's no need to compress them. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up here a preset and then save it, so we can just access it from this little preset button here. So for all of these sprite sheets, we're going to leave them as sprite 2Ds. The sprite mode's going to be multiple. The things that we want to actually change are this filter mode. I want to put that on point, so there's no filtering, and compression, none, and then click apply. Now if I click open sprite editor now, you'll see that's nice and crisp. We've got our pixel art back. So that's exactly the setting we want, but we're going to go through and make sure that we're actually using the whole sprite. You can see it's cropped in and we've got the anchor point in the wrong place and things, so we're going to fix all that in a moment. So now we've got that set, what you can actually do is click this little preset thing, and you can create presets here. You can click that create new texture, import a preset, and it'll take all the settings from here and create a preset. I've already done that, and I've got one here called texture importer preset, so I can click that and apply that at any time just by double clicking it, and it'll apply it to that asset. So I can select all of these, and then I can go to the preset, double click it, and it'll set them all to that, and I can click apply, and then they'll all be done. It says me going through lots of them, and you can check that easily by selecting one of them and going open the sprite editor, and you should see that it's all nice and pixelated. Now this is popped up straight away just saying there's an invalid rectangle for the sprite. You can just click remove if that pops up, because we're going to set up the correct rectangles for each sprite anyway. The way that the sprite sheets work is every frame of the animation has been placed down on a PNG that's I guess the minimum size it needs to be, so that there is a rectangular space for each frame. And we're just going to set up some settings down here of exactly how, tell Unity how to chop them up. So we can start with any of these really. What I'm going to do is this still one first, because we're going to use that to create our character sprite. So let's do that first. We'll go open sprite editor. If it complains about a rectangle, just click remove, because we're going to slice them using this slice button. So what we want to do is we want to slice by grid cell size, and our sprites, if you remember how they were in Aesprite, our sprites are actually, you can see at the bottom left corner, when I touch it, it disappears there, but 32 by 64, you can get that from sprite size, 32 by 64 pixels. That's what all of our frames are. So coming back to Unity, we want to slice by 32 by 64, and you can see it previews that as these red boxes, so it's slicing up that image into grids of 32 by 64. The pivot point, we want the pivot point to actually be right in the bottom center, but there isn't an option for that. So if we go to custom, our custom pivot point wants to be halfway, so 0.5 across the x-axis, that's this way, so right in the middle. I want it to be right at the bottom of the y-axis. So if we click slice there, what should happen now is when we click on one of these individual slices, you'll see it highlights in blue, and you'll see that the pivot has gone right to the bottom in between his feet. So it's 0.5 across and at 0 on the y-axis. So all of these should be exactly the same. So that sprite is now sliced perfectly into all of its bits. So we can click apply. You can see all the settings there. But we click apply there and then close that. And then we just need to do the same thing for these sprites. So we go walk down, open the sprite editor, remove any existing ones, slice, say 32 by 64. It's remembered all of our settings, which is really handy. Click slice, and then just click them and check them. So you can see that they're all sliced nicely, and they've all got their pivot points at the bottom. Click apply. Exactly the same with this. So slice, just check they're all exactly the same. Click slice. I'll just do a quick visual check, make sure everything's right. Click apply and right. Again, remove any invalid ones and just set them up. Make sure they're all exactly the same. Oh, I just accidentally moved that. You see, I slid that when I clicked on it. So be careful of that. Just Control and Z to undo there. Otherwise, you'll get some very strange looking animations. And walk. That one, the up one, remove any invalid ones, just check all of that, click slice, just give them a quick visual check that they're all good. Excellent. So, only takes a minute or so, but you'll see now the little down arrows appeared next to each of these, and when you spring them open, it's actually created sprites from these textures, like individual sprites for every frame. So you can click these now, and these now exist in Unity's stack here as separate sprites. So that's that part done. We've got all of our sprite sheets sliced into sprites ready to use. So let's move on to the next step. So that next step is going to be using the character wizard within Adventure Creator. So if you've got Adventure Creator installed within Unity, this menu up here that says Adventure Creator, Editors and Character Wizard, we're going to be using this, and we're going to be creating a player character. But you'll notice straight away when you do that, it wants a base game object to base your character on. So that means you've got to have something here in the hierarchy to base the character on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select one of these sprites that we've sliced. So this one of Clive just facing down. I'm just going to drag that out into the hierarchy, so we've got an object, and I'm just going to name it, I'm just going to call it Clive Down Tutorial, and that's because I've got some other sprites called similar things I can't spell. Let's call it, spell it correctly, Clive Down Tutorial. I'm going to then drag this is just a sprite, onto here, so it's a game object, it can recognize it straight away, and we're just going to call it Tutorial Clive, but this would be the opportunity for you to give this player a name that you recognise, because it's going to be used as the player sprite with all of the interactivity for the totality of your game. So if you click configure, you get a selection of options here. I would stick with Sprites Unity. I don't think you should use the complex one to begin with, especially if you're doing pixel art like this. Sprites Unity is absolutely fine. I would click Auto Add Animator States, and it's going to create you what you can see down here, which is actually my existing player sprite, but we're going to use this tutorial one instead. So it'll be all of the states for idle, down, up, left and right, walk, down, up, left and right, and talk, down, up, left and right. And we don't need any colliders in this case because we're not using physics for any of our game. So we can just put Auto Add Animator States and take off the Add Collisions and click Create. So now this character called Tutorial Clive. It will have been grouped automatically by Adventure Creator, and it will have added all of these components. The main one is this player component that's got lots and lots of different settings in here. So one thing you'll notice is that he's absolutely tiny here in the game world. So we can either scale up the main scale of the player that it's created, or you can just do it in the sprite that's beneath it. So I'm just going to do that and just scale it up a bit so we can see it. So this is our main player sprite. You can see it's using Sprite Unity animation engine. There's lots of other options there. We don't need to worry about too many of these, but there's a couple of them that we are going to change. So the key thing here is that this player will have an animator controller associated with it. So here in the object that's been created, if you go down to the original sprite that you had selected, you'll see it will have added an animator class, and the controller, the player tutorial Clive, that's the important bit. So if you give that a click, it will highlight it in your hierarchy where it is. So this player tutorial Clive is what we want to get our hands on. So when I click that, this window here will update. It doesn't look like it, but this is now showing the player tutorial Clive controller. And this is, it's just because it's the same as the one I had set up. It didn't look like it changed. This is all the different animation states that we need to provide an animation clip for. So player tutorial Clive, if I click each of these, you'll see in this motion setting there is nothing selected for the idle, down, up, left, right, walk. So these are the things we need to fill out. Haven't done any talk animations here, so we don't need to worry too much about them, but we certainly want to set up the idle things first. I will eventually animate a little idle animation of him blinking, maybe scratching his head or something like that, but for now we just want to get an animation clip that's just got this static down facing direction for his idle up, left and right. So the quickest way to do that, which seems a little bit counterintuitive sometimes, is to select the sprite that you want to turn into an animation clip, and then just right click it and go create animation clip, and then give this a name that you'll recognize. So I'm just going to call it Tutorial Clive Idle D, and I would always put what they're doing here, like idle, walk, run, talk, so you know exactly what it is and the direction. So in this case D. So that's one animation clip, and then what you need to do is just select this animator controller, and where it says motion there, it's waiting for an animation clip. You can just drag that into there. So we've now got that set in this one, and we need to do the same for up, left and right. So we'll go down to up, find his up facing one, right click, create animation clip. Same thing, Tutorial Clive. Some bad typing today, although those of you who watch the other videos, you know that's pretty common. Idle up, and it's best just to assign these as you go so you don't lose track of where you're at. Let's do his idle right, so create animation clip, tutorial Clive underscore idle underscore right. So select the right one, drag that in, and then finally the left one. And these animation clips, later on we'll be able to add more frames to them. We're just making sure that they're all set up and that all of these clips have got a clip associated with them. So you can just click through them and double check. We've got the down, the up, the left and the right. That's great. So all of our idle ones are in place. So we want to go through and do the walks next. So walk, let's go through. What we can do for these, because these are animations, we don't want to do an individual frame. We want all of these frames stringing into an animation clip. And the quickest way to do this is, instead of selecting one of them, you hold shift, select them all, and then right click and do exactly the same thing. Just go create animation clip, and then it'll create you another one. So I'm going to just I've copied in the words tutorial Clive to my clipboard, so I can just do that. And this is underscore walk underscore D for down. So this clip now will have all of those sprites in. If I select that and go to animation, you'll see here on the timeline that there's actually all of those frames laid out on the timeline already. We'll get into that in a moment. So we just want to do the same for the other ones. We want our walk left, so shift, select them all, create animation clip, and this is tutorial Clive underscore walk underscore L. And let's do right, select them all, right click, create animation clip, tutorial Clive underscore walk underscore R for right, and then final one, all of them, create animation clip, tutorial Clive underscore walk underscore U for up. So we've got them all there. We must make sure we have connected them all to our player tutorial Clive controller. So we did the idles before, making sure these are all populated. So the walks, we want to do exactly the same. So walk D, I should zoom in a bit there so you can see that. So this is walk D, so drag walk D into there, walk U, that into there, walk left, that into there, walk right, that into there. So they're all connected up now. We should have an animation clip for every one of these. Before we get to test this out, there's just a couple of things that we need to do. So we've got these set up. We want to go back across to the player game object that was created. And you remember I briefly mentioned this player component that Adventure Creators added to this for us. There's a couple of things in here we want to check, and then we want to drag this onto our project so that we get a prefab that's all set up with this character in. So before we make that prefab, we just want to come down and check a couple of things. First of all, we might change some of the speed scale. This is just how fast the sprite moves across the frame, and that can sometimes make it look like they're sliding. So we're going to maybe change that a little bit later. I tend to have it about 2.5 or 3, but we'll put it like that for now. But these are the things that I like to select. So turn before pathfinding. It basically, they'll turn on the spot and face the direction they're about to walk, which is much more like the retro games did. So I check that, and this retro style movement as well. It gets rid of the acceleration and deceleration values that again just don't have that kind of retro feel. So I select both of those, and I think that's probably all you need to check at the moment. There are some other settings here about the text colour of your character when they speak. So say you wanted all of his dialogue to be bright green or pink, you can choose that colour. It's easy to change these later. And this is actually their name as it appears if they're in a dialogue. So you obviously wouldn't want it to be called Tutorial Clive, but you could change it all there. But all of this is easy to change later, but might as well set them up ready. You'll see by default there's 4 facing directions. That's just the default player settings in Adventure Creator. So all that looks good to me. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So once that's done, you can then take this game object and we're going to drag it. In my case, I'm going to drag it into this tutorial folder, but you'd probably want to put it in your prefabs folder or something like that. So I'm going to click and drag Tutorial Clive onto here, and that just creates a prefab that will be used all the time. You can see it all goes blue here. In order to test this, we can, if there's the prefab of the player in the scene, it doesn't particularly matter, but what we want to do is have it so that any scene will just spawn him. So I'm going to click on him there and just delete him out of the scene. What we must do in order for the game Adventure Creator to know what our main player character is go to the Adventure Creator settings manager, which I think you can get from here if it's missing. It should always be there in Unity. It's got lots of different tabs at the top, but it's the main settings tab. If you scroll down a little, there'll be a bit here which says characters, and the player prefab. This is currently the one I'd set up before this tutorial. So I'm just going to drag Tutorial Clive onto that player prefab, and that just tells Adventure Creator to use this prefab as the player all the time, regardless of what scene you're on. So if you've got any player start points like these little blue arrows, then that's where it will spawn the player for a particular room. So we'll give that a test. Who knows, it should work. We should just click play and our character should appear on the start point. So I'm already expecting to see a couple of issues here, but they're the default settings that need to make you aware of. As you click now, the character's appeared as you'd expect him to. If I'm doing little clicks, you'll notice the first problem is that he's going behind items, so I'm going to show you how to change that. And the second problem is if I click all the way over here, you'll see he starts to slide, and similarly if he's at the top of the screen and you come down, he'll start to slide. You can just see that, and it's because he's getting to the end of his animation frames, because there's only 6 of them, and he's getting stuck on the last frame. So there's a couple of things that you need to change from the default settings. So let's deal with the layer order issue first, and then we'll extend the animations. So I'll just come out of play mode. So because these are now all to do with our Tutorial Clive prefab, we want to double click that and actually edit the prefab, so these changes get put across every time he's ever used. So if we come down here, you'll notice on the sprite, the sprite that we started this player with, there is an option here where the sprite sort point is set to center. And if you remember when we first sliced these sprites, we went to great pains to make sure that the pivot was right here between his legs. But the default setting for these sprite renderers is to sort by the center of the sprite. And because Adventure Creator is using that the sprite sort point to determine whether something is in front of or behind something else, like this desk, that's making that completely wrong. So we just need to change the sprite sort point to pivot. That'll sort that problem out. So if I go back, and just to prove it, we'll click play, and that should sort his layer order out. So when we come in front of the desk, there you go, he walks in front of the desk, and if we walk behind, he walks behind the desk. And to sort the sliding out, what we're going to do is set the animation loops, set the animation clips that we put here to loop. So each one of these, the walking ones, so down, up, left and right, if we select one of these here, so that we can see it in our hierarchy. If we actually click on the animation clip itself and see its inspector, you get this option to loop time, and we basically want to make sure we've clicked that for all of these walk ones. I mean, you can click it for the idle ones as well, it doesn't really matter because they've only got one frame, but you can either select them all like this and then click loop time so they're all set to loop, or individually go through if there's ones that you don't want looped. But now they're set to loop and they're referenced by this animator controller, they should now loop through. So if I just give that a quick save, hit play, that should solve the skating problem as well. So when we click, he's now walking correctly. Yep. And I've noticed another little problem that is something I've caused, I think. If you look very carefully, you're going to see a little splash of sprites just in front of his hand. That's, I think, where I've carelessly clicked when I was checking to see whether they're, the boxes and pivot points were in the right place. So it's only on his right walking animation, but it's little things like that. Sometimes you only spot once you get them into the game. Then I must have messed something up. So let's just go and give that a quick fix too. So we want to go to the walk right, so not the animation clip, sorry, we're going to go to the walk right sprite. Just look at the sprite editor for that sprite sheet, and I've got a feeling, yes, see, I've nudged that one accidentally and it's just grabbing his arm from this next frame, which is why that looks a bit strange. So it's been moved by 1 pixel. You can see the positions that they should be at should all be divisible by 32. So I've just accidentally clicked it and moved it. Great thing about Unity is we just hit apply and that should be sorted. It'll all be sliced correctly. Just give that another whirl and make sure we've got rid of that little rogue set of pixels. Yep, there we go, they're gone now. So it's as simple as that, really. I know it's not simple, but we've now managed to get all of our sprites that we drew in Aesprite into Adventure Creator, into the character wizard, and using Unity's own sprite editor and sprite slicing, we've managed to change what was hours and hours of hand-drawn pixel art into a character that now follows around your cursor, and you can click and they walk in all these different directions. So I hope that's been really useful. I hope that I've covered everything that you might want to hear about, but please put comments below the video, anything that I might have missed, or even if you've got a faster way of doing what I've just been through there, I'd be interested to know, and I'm sure other people would as well. Please subscribe, like and share these videos. I'm trying to do as many as I can in the different sections of building this game. If you've not seen some of the other videos, then there is a time lapse of me drawing this office room. There's a tutorial about how to link these rooms up. There's actually a time lapse of me drawing this kitchen room as well. And in some of those videos I talk about other ways and like these lighting effects and things like that, about how I'm going to use those in the game. So thanks for tuning in. Please tune in to the other videos, have a look at them. We're going to be finishing off this room soon because it's only partially drawn, and setting up some of the other characters for the game. So thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you on another video.